No wardrobe change, sorry.
Yeah, I was just going to say the same thing.
So we both have a lot going on, and stealing away a couple of hours to do a little of this is fun, but hard to get it in the schedule.
Right. And so you were leaving off with when you stopped using the biologics and why.
Okay, so first I will just give a quick rundown of what biologics I did. So I did 4 chronic recurrent panuveitis with scleritis thrown in there sometimes. Mm-hmm. I found that the biologics did nothing for the rest of me.
And I had the opposite.
You had the opposite. For biologics, it gave you a little bit of your life back.
A lot of it.
A lot of it
really helped a lot.
Right. Yeah. For me,
after I got over the initial one that gave me all the side effects.
Right. Which the same one gave. I couldn't take that one either.
Neither one of us could take that one.
So, so you were able to move more. You were able to do a lot of more of the things that you had given up because of
or
that.
Just
because
struggled to do. Did them, but struggled.
Right. Okay. Yeah. But there are things you had to give up. You don't run 5 miles anymore.
No, and I still don't.
Right.
I walk. I don't.
Right,
run.
and I can't. And I can't either.
Right.
So
we both walk and ride our bikes.
Right. Which is hard.
Yeah.
All of that. There's times when I can't do anything.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So we'll talk about that another time. But
so you ended up really, really sick and in the hospital.
Okay, so don't give it away too fast. So with Humira, I was on that for 3 years, and then it really stopped working.
Yes.
Stopped working, eyes raged.
And I found the same. They kind of...
Your immune system finds a workaround. It just does.
Right.
So that's why when you see those ads with certain actors saying that they're on this drug and 10 years later they're still endorsing this drug, there's no way they're still on the same drug.
It doesn't seem possible. But.
Yeah, it sure doesn't. But anyway, so the next one was Remicade. And that one made me so sick. I actually got drug-induced lupus that took a year to resolve from Remicade. Mm-hmm. And Remicade made you really sick.
Many issues.
We'll talk about that when we talk about your deal. And so after Remicade, I went back on, not right away, but we tried Humira again, and the doctor thought if he added methotrexate with it
might work.
that it might help my body from rejecting it as quickly. Right. So we did Humira again a second time, and for 2 years got things to kind of simmering. Mm-hmm. But I'm still on all the drops, still having to do steroid drops, all of that.
And the balance with the pressure.
And it was a constant roller coaster.
Still.
Pressure.
Until
and pressure goes up, it's a mess. So they give you the steroid drops, your pressure spikes. So then you have to back off the steroid drops, and then your eyes flare. And it's just, it's a huge roller coaster. Yep. And so then the next one after Humira worked for 2 years, keeping it kind of steady. The next one was Simponi, which I also did with methotrexate. Mm-hmm. And, some of those, I had not horrible side effects, but with Humira and Simponi and methotrexate, I had a lot of nausea. Mm-hmm. I lost a lot of hair, actually, with methotrexate. Probably half my hair.
And luckily you have
I have a lot of hair, so only my hairdresser and I knew.
Right.
But I lost a lot of, it's all back, but I lost a lot, my hair got very thin during that time. Mm-hmm. And then Simponi stopped working, and my doctor really wanted me to try one of the interleukin protein blocking drugs, which were different than the TNF-alpha blocker class of the biologics. It's a different class. So the next one we tried was Actemra. And Actemra was the rock star. Mm-hmm. Actemra was the one that got my eyes the best that they've been through all of this. They were still, I was still always at a +1 flare.
Right.
With always cells. But
that was really good for you.
That was really good for me.
Yeah.
And then we had a life change, and we ended up with a grandchild living with us full-time in our care, as well as another grandchild full-time in our care when his guardian works. And I lasted doing that for 2 months before I ended up really sick, because I was immune suppressed, and I've got these little kids, and you know how little kids are. They want to hug and they want to snuggle, and they're wiping their snot on everything.
Right. And
you're just exposed to, they're like little plague carriers, these kids. And so I got sick, and 2 months after that started, I ended up really sick, and then in like a day, I ended up in the hospital. Like I was with you.
Yeah.
She and I, with another sister, we were out shopping, and I went back to your house with you for just a little while, had dinner with you, and I remember when I left, and I was fine. I really was fine. I didn't feel, other than my joint disease, my autoimmune disease in my eyes, I mean, like, I didn't feel like I had a virus or bacteria. I didn't feel sick. And I remember when I left your house thinking, I don't even think I can walk to my car. I don't think I can walk to my car. I remember feeling like that.
Yeah.
And I got myself to the car. I didn't say anything to you.
No, but you told me later how.
Later. And then so I drove home, and I got myself into the house, and I just like laid down on the couch, and then I just did not move. I didn't move.
You were really, really sick.
And it happened, it like escalated so quickly.
With biologics, it's dangerous.
And so I ended up, my husband took me to the emergency room that night, and the sister that was in from out of town came and stayed with our grandchild, who is now living with us, so we could go to the emergency room. And all of the labs they did in the emergency room got me a free ticket to a bed upstairs, because I had pneumonia, and all the signs in the lab said that I was becoming septic.
Right.
So I spent an entire week in the hospital with that. And afterwards, I just, at this point, this was November, Thanksgiving week, actually, of 2018. And I just decided then that I just wasn't going to do immune suppressants anymore.
Right.
And I told my husband, I was like, okay, so this is what's going to happen.
Well, it had stopped working, the one you were on.
That one, right. I had to do 2 bursts of oral prednisone.
Right. It was
in like the 3 months prior to this. Because Actemra was starting to not work anymore. Because that's what happens. It'll just like, and we stay on it for a little while. Is it really not working?
Right.
I had done 2 bursts. And the last one
had run its course.
Right. The last one had been in August. And anyway.
Yeah.
So when I got that upper respiratory thing, which I thought I was getting better from, which I obviously wasn't. It was just, I just thought I had a cold.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
Wasn't any big deal. I didn't feel sick. I had stopped. I hadn't taken my shot though because of that.
Right.
Like if I ever felt like that, I didn't take my shot. But it's in your system. So I ended up in the hospital, and I was really sick. Like, and believe me, our grandmother died of sepsis at 53. So I'm laying there in the bed thinking about that. You know, they're saying you have sepsis and you have pneumonia, and you could hear my lung every breath. You could hear the wheezing sound from across the room.
Well, and you didn't get over it real quickly either.
No, I still had, when I got bounced from the hospital, I still had pneumonia.
You still had it for a few weeks,
all of my, no, it was a couple months.
Yeah.
And I still, the labs had resolved though. So whatever was going on in my blood had resolved, so they let me go home.
Right.
But it was a lot of broad spectrum antibiotics, and it was some crazy stuff. And, well, that's one way you can lose weight on prednisone. For a week with pneumonia, I lost 10 pounds in the hospital, but, you know, there's always another burst coming, so I had a couple more bursts since then, so those 10 pounds are back. But, I had decided, I told my husband, I was like, you know, it's going to be really stupid, because the eulogy will say, well, at least she wasn't blind, right? So, I kept my vision, but I died from the treatment. Right. So, I just decided, for me, at that point, I just can't. And actually, both of my doctors said because of that, I'm not a candidate right now anyway.
Right.
Because I would be at high risk for it happening again.
Yes.
So then we had to go, here we are, at this point, 20 years into uveitis, and a decade into chronic uveitis, and now we had to do what's next.